Homeland and Ablat Gemara. Today, Sunday's Daf is Daf Yutes. We are up to 5 lines from the top of the page. We're continuing learning about a Kohen Gadol who is an Oinen. He's not permitted to go after his father's coffin, even from Machlekes, from a distance, whether he can or he cannot. And then we discussed generally that a Kohen Gadol should not can be involved in a Din Torah, be judged, witness, testify by others, and so on. Says the Gemara 6 lines from the top. If Meslay Mace, if he lost someone from his close relatives, May says he can keep a distance. I mean, I make this say that from the base of Migdash, he should not follow the coffin means. Says according to Meir, don't travel together with, don't walk together with all the other mourners. But he could keep a distance away from them. Ketzad, for example. Hein Nixon, when they turn the side street, then he comes up onto the street, so he's distant from them. Hein Niglin, when they come onto the street, he conceals himself. By having this distance, he will stay away. The Yoitze ad Pesach, that he can go out until the door of Yerushalayim, until the very entrance. Shapikam Rabbi Yehuda says, when I make this even from a distance, he shouldn't be following the coffin. I'm not going to make if you take it literally, then the base of Namile. How does he go home? You're not allowed to leave the base of Migdash if you take it literally. Obviously, he is allowed to go home. It's only following the coffin. So it means something else. You know what it means? I mean, Migdash over here does not mean the noun, the base of Migdash. It means from his Kedusha, he has to be very careful not to sacrifice his Kedusha. The kiva the Islay hekeda, and by touching and contaminating, defiling himself. But since there's a heked, because he has to keep his distance, he won't come to touch it. In fact, Rabbi Yehuda, what's Rabbi Yehuda concerned about? He agrees he's allowed to go home. But Agav Marore, because of his bitterness, and he's so disappointed. Remember, we're talking about the 7 closest relatives. Dilma Mikri could happen for us even not to touch it. So to avoid any possibility, he shouldn't follow it. Then the Mishnah continues. When he's consoling others, what have we learned? So they had a shura. But in those days, as we mentioned, in those days the Abel would be standing in one place, and the people would go ahead and wish him condolences. When he passed by in a shura, when this Kohen Gadol went to console others, what words did he actually use, and how did he present himself? So it says the following: Sigan, his deputy. Mashuach sha'avar. Now, what exactly is a Mashuach sha'avar? If a Kohen Gadol, for some reason or another, has a transient moment, he's disqualified to do any service in the Beis HaMikdash for a time being, we appoint a deputy. And this deputy then becomes the Kohen Gadol, especially in Kippur. The Kohen Gadol can't serve, so we have, for whatever reason, temporarily, so we have another Kohen Gadol stepping in. When the original Kohen Gadol becomes better, according to Taisus and Yuma, if it took a long time for the Kohen Gadol to cover a number of years, then he doesn't get reinstated. But if it's short term and the Kohen Gadol recuperates, the original Kohen Gadol takes his position back, and the other Kohen Gadol is called a Kohen Meshuach Sha'avar, past tense. He was anointed, but in past tense. In fact, he's in a state of limbo. He can no longer serve as a Kohen head, an ordinary Kohen, because he was elevated to the position of Kohen Gadol. He can no longer serve as a Kohen Gadol because the original Kohen Gadol is back. I guess so now he's in a state of limbo. So it's I guess, it's worthwhile being a hero for a moment, even though the rest of your life, it impacts the rest of your life. Now, there's a famous Gemara in Yuma where this mother said that she was Zoicha, she merited that 7 of her sons were Kohenim Gedolim. And everybody wonders how that's possible, because the only way you can be a Kohen Gadol is if somebody passes away. So she's saying that she lost 6 sons young, and each one of them then became a Kohen Gadol in succession. So some want to say that it's talking about that one Kohen Gadol sort of was unable to serve, so the next son became the deputy. And then the following year, the same thing happened again. He couldn't serve, so he made another deputy, and that's how 7 of his sons became Kohen Gadol. The question that other people ask him that is, why couldn't the same deputy who was appointed once to replace the Kohen Gadol be reinstated again when the Kohen Gadol once again becomes sick? Others say that we're learning more that if a Kohen Gadol's hand shakes, he cannot serve as a Kohen Gadol. He didn't have to pass away. He just had a shaking. So maybe that's what happened to every one of his sons. They're like Parkinson's. That therefore all 7 children became Kohen Gadol. They all lived and everything else, but they had this sickness of the hand shaking. And the Gemara continues. So he has the deputy and the Meshuach Shavar, a distinguished Kohen Gadol, B'Yaminah on his right side. We always have on the right side chash for people to escort, the one in the middle, and the Rosh Beisav, the head of the family, the Kohenim, and that day, that weekend, that day, the Avelim and the mourners, the Chol and the rest of the people, Mismael, are all on the left side of the Kohen Gadol. If he's the one who's standing, because he happens to be the mourner, the Kohen God himself is the Avel, then and others are consoling him. Then the Sgan, the deputy is on the right side. But you notice we omit the Meshuach Sha'ava, we'll see in a minute. And the Rosh base of, and the head of the family of Kohenim, and the rest of the people on the left side. But the Meshuach Sha'ava, that Kohen Gadol who was there temporarily, filled in, is no longer there when he's another. Why not? My time of it'll make the Kohen Gadol feel worse because he feels he feels that this Kohen Gadol, he feels very threatened by this deputy this Kohen Gadol who replaced him, and he's always seeing the guy who's praying that he should pass away so he can he's the next one in line. So don't come to me Menachem. Very interesting that Ramon Shulchan Aruch brings down. Actually, others disagree, but he brings down that an enemy, should not come to me Menachem. The enemy might think this is a way of asking mechila, of making up for for whatever it is that caused their rift in the first place. Should not come, and the basis for that is Gemara right here. We say the Meshuach Sha'ava shouldn't come, and what do you call it? Because he's like a Sinai, and others disagree. Gemara continues. I'm going to learn from this the three dinim from here. We learn three dinim from this brayso. First of all, Hainus gan Hainem Emunah. On the one place it talks about when he walks when he's standing in the shore and other people are coming to wish him condolences. We use the word scan, the deputy, and then when he's passing by the mourner, it says that he walks together with the Emunah, the appointee. So it's obviously Emunah and the sgan are the same people. Are the same people. So that's number one. Number two is because in our Mishnah it says the Mamuna. Here in the Brayso, he constantly refers to the person as Gan deputy. In our Mishnah, it talks about a Mamuna who stands on his right side, the appointee. It seems clear Mamuna and Sgan are one and the same person. Next thing we learn from here is that the oval stands in one place and everybody walks by the oval, not like we have it today. And that the avelim are always on the left side of those who are coming to console them. It actually changed. But initially, the Avelim was standing in one place, everybody used to pass by. But then there's a whole argument, because then once you have to file by, those who came first are more chashuv than those who came later. Big argument. Like the two families, they were arguing with each other. This family said, I should be first. I should be first. He's skinuk. You know what they said? Everyone should be standing in their places. The avelim will pass through, which is what we have today. We have the two shulas and the avelim pass through. But the Gemara says, in fact, it makes no difference. As the Gemara continues, who was a rabbi of Tzipori, brought it back. He was actually exiled in Tzipori in that story in Shabbos when he didn't want to give an opinion as to whether the Romans did the right thing or the wrong thing between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. So they sent him off to Tzipori. And while he was there, he made a number of institutions. He brought it back that the Avelim should be standing in one place and all the people passed by. Rami Bar Abba. And Rami Bar Abba said, he's instituted Tzipori. We don't want that a woman, should be walking in the marketplace, and the son should be behind her, that she cannot protect. Why? Because a Maisa Shoya, an incident that happened, she didn't even realize the son was behind her, was kidnapped, taken captive, and then when she started to look and she went berserk, they told her that he's found in a certain house, and when she got there, they abused her. So we said, to be careful, you should always have a child in front of you. While they're in Beis Hakisa, they should be talking to each other so that if a man walks, remember, at night out in the fields, if a man comes in, he'll hear voices, he'll know that somebody there. Because otherwise it'll be a problem of yichud, of being alone, especially at night and out in the field. Amar Menashe ben Abed She'eli, we asked Rabbi Yeshua, Rabba, the great Rabbi Yeshua, there's another Rabbi Yeshua as well. So we asked the Tana Rabbi Yeshua, who always argued that innocent. The base Almin, while in the cemetery of Hutzal of Amelie, he said to me, Ain't Shula Pchusa Masabni Adam. A Shula should not be unless you have a minion. The Ain Avelim in a minion. When it comes to a Chassan, we include the Chassan in the minion, more Ksubis design. But when it comes to Avelim, we don't include the Avelim in the minion. We need 10 people to console. Bain Shavelim Aimlim, Becholam Avim, doesn't matter whether Avelim are standing in one position and everybody passes them by, or Bain Shavelim Avim, or Avelim are shuffling by, Becholam Aimlim, everybody is standing in one place. Kishu misnachem, and the kohen gadol is on the receiving end of condolences. When he gives other condolences, what does he say? Tashma, coming here. He says tisnachamu. He says tisnachamu, that what? That we should be consoled. Is it talking about the Kohen Gadol saying to the Kohen who is saying to a person who's a mourner, or is this the Kohen Gadol responding to people who are wishing him condolences? While people are wishing him condolences, when he's responding, Tisnachamu. So we see clearly from here, the Rebbe says that when you say Hamokim Menachem Eschem V'Shal V'Yerushalayim, somebody says that to a mourner, the mourner should answer back Amen. We see from here that we expect a response, because we have said the Kohen Gadol could very well be where he has to respond, but we're saying this cannot be the response, because what he's saying to them is, you're going to have a problem soon, and therefore I'm giving you condolences now. That's not a good response, but you do have to have a response. And the Rebbe said you should answer Amen. Is he giving him like a bad omen? When he is wishing condolences of the others, he says to them, you should be consoled. Interesting to note when exactly did the words that we use today become the standard mantra, the standard wish of condolences. Second one further, a melech, what about a king? Like done, a king should not judge, nor should be judged. We already had yesterday that you don't put a king on the Sanhedrin, but it says Lesana al Riv, you shouldn't get involved in an argument. We take the Yud out of the Riv because there's no Yud, Lesana al Rav. And if the king is there, the king, out of respect for the king, he should give the first opinion. And if he gives the first opinion, nobody can argue with him. So therefore, it's not fair. We can't have him sitting on the court, on the Supreme Court. So the Gemara now says, a king shouldn't judge. So only Jewish kings have a Malki Beis David. Malki Beis David can be involved in judgment. And the question is how? We just said that he can't because we Lisan Arif. So another thing I want to say, there's a difference between capital punishment and commercial. When it comes to capital punishment, the Gadol should have been the last one to give an opinion because we don't want anyone arguing. But we'll see more later. When it comes to commercial things, you can even start from the highest person. So therefore, there's nothing wrong by a king. He can be involved. At least Malka or David, not Malka Yisrael. Now, why should it be? We know there was a split in the kingdoms. There was two kings, two monarchs by Eden. There's Malka Yisrael over the 10 tribes, and then there was Malka David. Now, why is it that Malka Yisrael can't? What's the problem there? Even the Imam. This Mer will explain. How do we know? First of all, Malka Beis David were involved in court cases. The Chsiv, it says Beis David, Koyim Hashem. This is what Hashem said. Dina Levaykim Mishpat. This is what Hashem says. That the house of David, they get involved every morning in justice. Has involved in Beis, but David Melech got involved in either compromises or involved in listening to disputes. The E loy davina lay, but if we can and if we cannot judge them, then inyo hechedaina. The fact that we allow Malkei David to be on the bezin to judge others, it must be that they also can be judged on the receiving end. And they can be defendants. And how do we know that? Because what Ksivi learned before, he's kaishishu, interrogate others, but kaishu, then interrogate yourself, but kaishu, and interrogate others. First cleanse yourself out, only then afterwards do you worry about others. Ella, Malke, Yisrael, Jewish kings, my time why not? Why shouldn't they be involved on a court, on a bezin? Well, I said, you know why? A story that happened. Maise Shahaya. The Avde the Yane Malka, the servants of Yane Amelech, Kotel Nafsha. The servant of Yane killed someone. Now, the dinner we just had before that, if your shari kills someone, your money kills someone, we bring the owner into court. Your Eved kills someone, we bring the owner into court. So the Shimon said to Chachamim, through an Eichem Boy, I want you to look into this, and let's judge him. He sent my message, your Eved just killed someone. He sent the Eved over. So they sent him another message. You Yani Hamel, please come and join and be present there when your Evid is going to be tried. Well, who would the Baal of Amateri? Torah says that when you try some an Evid, it has to be there with odor. Yovi Baal Asher, this talks about Asher. No, when your possessions cause damage, you have to be there as well. The Yamad Al Shode. Also, he came to Yosef and he sat. Amalei Shimon Beshatr Yanei Amelech Yanei Amoid Al Raglecha, stand on your feet, so that they can testify against your Evid. But don't think that you're standing before us. You're standing for the Abishus. And it says, the two people leave, it says the Pasuk, Lifnei Hashem, you're standing for Hashem. Amalei Yani Hamelch responded, I'm not going to listen to you. Let me turn to your colleagues over here, your peers, and let's see if they demand that I, the king of Israel, should stand up in this court. It's humiliating. So Nifke Yamina, he turned to his right. All the judges on the right buried their heads in the ground. Nifke was out of shame, they're out of fear. Nifke was to the left. Again, they buried their heads. He said to all of his peers, your people are so thoughtful. Let the greatest Baal Machshavas Hashem come, the Yifrim Mechem, and let him come and punish all of you for being daunted and intimidated by the king. Tell this the man's thing we have to do with a charity man. Gabriel came on Gabriel, the Chaftam Bekarka, and he smashed all of them in the ground, the mason, and they all died. But that moment they said, Melech loydon v'loydon oisei. We shouldn't get involved in court case at all because they can vent their spleen and their anger and cause all of this damage. Now you read the story, Shimon Meshata, very strident against Yana, he told him to stand up, and then he said to the Chacham, you guys sent them a letter. What are you guys? Shimon Meshata was the Av Bezin, then he became the Nasi. So he, being the Av Bezin, should have sent a letter. Before we had a machlekes or shaynim of the muflish of a bezin is actually considered part of the bezin or outside. It seems from here that he would be considered outside the bezin. That's why he said to the other guy, you guys send a letter. And that's why Yanai said, you're not part of the bezin. So let me turn to your colleagues and see if they want me to stand up or not. Those opinions that say that the Av bezin or the muflish bezin is part of the bezin, so what's going on here? It would appear, more brachas we had in Abimches, that Yaneh HaMelech was married to Shimon Meshatach's sister. It was actually his brother-in-law. And because it was his brother-in-law, Shimon Meshatach couldn't sit and be on the bezin, even though normally he was on the bezin, he couldn't. That's why he turned to his peers and said, you guys send a letter. You guys have to do everything, but he was coaching them and coaxing them, but he couldn't in any way be involved because he, at the end of the day, was a brother-in-law, a relative, and he couldn't do anything. And that's what happened here. But they were very intimidated and they all got punished severely. Face, that's an interesting question. We're learning our shoes that a Talmid Chacham doesn't have to stand, he can sit. And now Yanai Melech, king, L'chayt is even more distinguished and more prestigious than a Talmid Chacham. A Talmid Chacham, Shemachal, we have more tradition, we'll have later, a Talmid Chacham, Machal, Kvoide, Machal. He can forego his covet. But a king, a Melech, Shemachal, Kvoide, and Kvoide Machal, he cannot forego his covet. So we see that a king is more prestigious. So if a Talmid Chacham is permitted to sit out of covet, then surely a king should. So this Tosfos here, as others agree, but Tosfos here says that actually a Talmid Chacham is superior to a king. But the reason why Talmid Chacham can be Meichel is covenant because he owns it. Toirasa delaying, Mar Kedusha said. You learn. First it starts with Toirasa Yega, and afterwards it says it's your Torah because you learned it, you acquired it, you assimilated it, it became part of you. I can therefore be Meichel the covenant. Mashenk and a king, it's his office. It's not going to do with him. And the reason why we have to give him covenant because there's a mitzvah of the Torah. It's not his mitzvah to forego. Doesn't mean in any way that a king is more distinguished than a Talmid Chacham. Anyway, the Gemara continues. When it comes to a king, we don't give chalitza, nor does he give chalitza. And chalitza l'chayda is usually, and we also said that a king cannot marry his brother's wife, nor do you marry the wife of a king. And l'chayda, the first reason is why you don't give chalitza to his wife, or vice versa, is because the king can. The only reason why you give chalitza is No, the question is there a mitzvah to receive chalitza, or the chalitza releases the woman, so now she can marry anybody she wants? But the wife of a king, since she cannot marry anybody that she wants, she cannot marry anybody after she was married to a king, so therefore you don't give chalitza to the wife of a king either, because what's the point? And actually, there's a whole question. Is chalitza a mitzvah regardless of whatever she's eventually getting married again? Does she still need chalitza? Is there such a mitzvah, or the mitzvah is merely a means to an end to release her from the bonds of a brother-in-law? But if she's not interested in getting married, who cares? From here we see that by a king, there's no chalitza because she cannot. The wife of a king, if he passes away, she cannot marry anybody else. If there's no chalitza, that would support a view that says that chalitza is merely a release rather than a mitzvah. Anyway, how could Rabbi come along and say, but if the king wants to, he can marry the wife of a previous king? And we said it's a good thing, but up to him, Michael is covered. How can he do that? Says the Gemara, that you should fear the king. So we answer mitzvah shiny. You're right, a king cannot be Michael's covered, but here he's doing a mitzvah of Yibum, and therefore he can. They don't marry the wife of his brother. And he brought a raya. Rabbi Yehuda said yes, he can, because we see Shalom Melech, David Melech took over Shaul's wife. Not that he married Shaul's wife. The women in Shaul's household who were not married yet, David Melech took. We'll soon discuss. Which daughters did Shaul Melech have? He had two daughters, Meirav and he had Michal. Two daughters. And we're going to see now, Machlekes, which of these daughters were married to Yosef. According to Rabbi Yossi, we're going to learn that David. According to Rabbi Yossi, David HaMelech was married to Meirav, and then later he married Michal. And we had that Michal was an unbelievable tzaddikus, that she used to put on tefillin. She was a very big tzaddikus. And Meirav. And according to Yossi, he married both. And the Gemara will discuss how that's possible. And according to Shimon Karcha, he only married Michal, he never married Meirav. And the Gemara says, how in the world did David marry these two women, Meirav and the sister Michal Bechayen, while he was still alive? He said, Michal Acha Misas Meirav Nasa. Michal was only married to David after Meirav already passed, and it didn't you're allowed to marry your wife's sister when she passed away. And Shimon Karcha totally disagrees. He says, Kiddushay Toyis Hoyulay B'Meirav. He says, Kiddushay Toyis, there's Kiddushay Toyis to Meirav. Shenema, he says, no, he was never married to Meirav. Even though Shalom Melech presented David Meirav, they were never technically married, so therefore he only married Michal. What's the story? Shenema, it says in the Pasuk, David HaMelech pursued Ish Boishes, and he says, Tno es ishti, give me my wife es Michal. Asherasli, that I got engaged to her, B'meya arolas plishtim. Shalom Melech promised, whoever could bring me back 100 foreskins of plishtim, I will give her my daughter, and I did it. So therefore Michal was my wife. My Talmud, how do you see from me that only Michal was married to him and not Meirav? But Papa, Michal Ishti, Michal is my true wife. Well, I Meirav Ishti, Meirav is not. So Shimon argues he was only married to Michal, never married to Meirav. So he wanted my Kiddush toys, but he tried, but there were overtures to marry Meirav. Yet it was a mistake. What exactly was the mistake? The Chesiv, Shalom Melech promised when Goliath was intimidating and threatening Klal Yisrael. Shalom Melech then gave a promise. Well, Ish Asher Yakenu, the person that is going to smite Goliath, Yashrenu, I will make him very wealthy. Amelech, I'll give him enormous wealth. Plus, I'll give him my daughter as a wife. Also, Kotlik, Domino went to Goliath. And then he went to Shaul to claim his wife. So Shaul said, look, Milva Isla Gaboy, I owe you a lot of money. And you're not giving me any money for my daughter. It's just the money that I owe you. All right, I owe you all this money, and you're saying keep the money. That's called hamekadish b'milva. You're being mekadish. I lent you $100. Let's say you lent this woman $100, and then you say, "You're not. You don't have to. The $100 that I gave you, I am what do you call it? I'm moichel. Keep it, and that's the kedushin. It's not because I'm not giving her anything now. When I gave it to them, it wasn't kedushin. Now she spent it, and she had every right to. What am I giving it today? Nothing, and that's what happened. So David HaMelech was supposedly married to Meirav, but it wasn't because Mekadosh Benul was merely alone. Shalom owed a lot of money, and David forgone the money. He said, "Give me a daughter, and that money should be the kedushin." That's a milva. So therefore, he was never married to Meirav. And instead, what Shalom did was, to spite David, Ozil, he went, Yohavile Edriel. He gave his daughter Medab to a man called Edriel as a wife. The Chsiv, it says, he be'ez taste as Medab Shaul David, who at the time when Medab was supposed to be given to Shaul, to David, what happened there was instead, gave it to Edriel. So Amalei said to him, Iba, Boyiz, the Etnolach Michal, then Shalom said, you know what, I have one other daughter left. I gave Meirav away to Edriel. You want? I have one daughter, Michal. Zil Aiseli Meya Arolas Plishim. Bring me 100 foreskins of Plishim. All he did, Aisli brought it. Amalei. David Melech argued, Milva Uprutis Lagaboy. Taki owe me Oisha Godel, enormous wealth, but you also owe me a little bit for these 100 foreskins. Not worth as much, not worth very much, but it's worth something. You owe me for that. So it's a milva, and I'm giving it to you right now. And with that, I want him a kaddish. There's a milva and a pruta, and therefore I want Michal to be my wife. Shaul says no, she's not, because milva pruta daita milva. Look, I promise you enormous wealth and a little bit of you gave me some foreskins. I'm sure you're relying on this enormous wealth that you're being so kind, and you're saying to her, keep it. So therefore, daita and milva. And you're not mekudesh, you're not giving her anything. Therefore, Michal's not your wife either. But David Sava milva pruta daita pruta. David held no, that you're thinking about the pruta, and therefore I want the pruta. Another answer is the Kuli Alma, everyone holds Milva Pruta, Daika Pruta. Everyone knows that the Milva and the Pruta, of course, you're thinking about the Pruta. So Chayla Michal is deservedly the wife of David. What's the value? What's the value of the foreskins of 100 goyim? Nothing. David holds that yes, you can use it for dogs and for cats. In other words, and what's the machlek? The machlek is, according to some, whether a goyish corpse is asher b'hana or not. Shalom Melech held that he not have any benefit from whatsoever, so it's zero value. And according to David Melech, it has value because it's not asher b'hana. But Rabbi Yossi, according to Rabbi Yossi, he says that he married both wives. Why does it say Dafke by Michal? To give him my wife. Mary is also your wife. Rabbi Yossi, hi, yes, Michal, my daughter. What does he dash? He'll dash something totally different from this. He dashes Rabbi Yossi Tamei. Rabbi Yossi is consistent with his view. The time we learned, Rabbi Yossi dashes a few psukim that seem a little bit mixed up. Who's the father and the mother and so on. To teach us something very important. See, it says, the king took the two sons of Ritzpah, Bas Aya, the daughter of Aya, Ashiyol, the Shaul, that gave birth to Shaul. As Armoni, and he also took as Chameshes Bnei Michal, the 5 sons of Michal, Ashiyol, who gave birth La Adriel, to Adriel Hamachulasi. Now, Michal was never married to Adriel. What does that mean? The Chil Adriel Nasra, the Shaul didn't give Michal to Adriel, but the Palti Belayish Nasra. What Shalom did was he said to David, Michal is not your wife, and he gave her over to Palti Ben Laish. The Chil said the Shaul Nasra Michal Bas aged David, the Palti gave Palti Ben Laish. So what's from the pasuk? To teach you an interesting thing. Elamakish kedusha. First of all, to teach you. Sorry, from here we learn out that just like kedusha, that just like Adriel couldn't marry Michal. They couldn't marry Michal, or Michal couldn't marry Palti Ben Laish. So too, Michal could not. Meirav could not marry Adriel. Why? Because they were already sort of David Mel's wives, and therefore he had no right to give it to those two people. Elamakish kedusha made of Adriel is comparing, equating the kedusha of made of Adriel, the kedusha Michal the Palta. Definitely, Palti was not allowed to marry Michal because she was engaged to David Melech. So too, Meirav was engaged to David Melech, and he had no right to. He had no right to. How could David marry Michal after he married Meirav? Because Meirav died. But he learned that they were married, both of them were David Melech's wives, and therefore Adriel could not marry, nor could Palti ben Laish. Ma kedusha Michal and Palti baveda was a sin. Half kedusha Meirav Adriel baveda was a sin. However, Rabbi Yeshua ben Karchu says he was never married to Meirav, he was only married to Michal, there was no sin involved at all. So why does it say that Michal, who was married to Adriel, Michal was never married to Adriel? Yisrael only gave it to Palti. Haksiv is Chameshes b'nei Michal Bas Shaul, who was married to Adriel. Amalach Rabbi Yeshua, we learned from an interesting thing. Michal Yod, first of all, not even Michal's children. Allah Meirav Yoda, Meirav gave birth to them. Meirav Yoda and Michal Gidla. But what happened was Meirav gave birth to them, but Michal raised them. And we learn out the Vichnik Hashma, she gets credit. The Lamna to teach you. So Gol Hamagalu Yosam, anybody who raises an orphan, the third base in his house, It's as if you gave birth to that child. Some people want to argue even Yosef Revu from that, raising a Yosem. And regarding Kaddish, they should say Kaddish, because as if you gave birth to them. How far do we take it? Yeah, we learn out similar things. From the following idea, and the shame when Ruth gave birth. When Ruth gave birth to her child, it says that the neighbors decided to give the name. And what name to give? Yula ben Nami. They said our child was born to Nami. Nami Yoda, Yoda, that Nami gave birth. It was the Rus that gave birth, and they called the child Oive, but it was the Rus. El Rus Yoda ben Nami Gidler, Nami raised it. Fichanika Ashma, therefore it was called after her. Abiyachan Hacha said, Ishta Ya Yehudis, Kol ben Yefuna's wife, known as Yehudis. Yoda gave birth to Yedid, and to Avigdor, and to Avigdor. Eile b'nei Bisya Bas Pari. These are the children of Bisya, the daughter of Pari. Interesting how it evolved. Everyone calls it Basya. These are the children of Bisya, the daughter of Pari. Ashalokach Mered. And Mered married her. So first of all, who's Mered? Zeh Kolev. That's Kolev. And why was it called Mered? Because he rebelled. He rebelled against the Meragim. Fine. These are names of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was birth mother was Yecheved. Yecheved Yolda Bisya Gidla. Yecheved birth, but Bisya raised her. Fichanikra Ashmar, her name. From here, it says in the pasuk, "Go out to Bezra'acha." It says in pasuk, like, "Go out, you redeem Bezra'acha with your strength." Amcha, your people, Bnei Yaakov, the children of Yaakov, the Yosef, and Yosef Salah forever. Where does Yosef come in the picture? He gave birth to them. The Gemara, Yosef gave birth, Yaakov Yola. Yaakov gave birth to Shvatim. Yaakov Yola, but Yosef Kilko. Yosef fed them. For the Negro Shma, he gets all the credit. I would go a step further. Anybody who teaches, Ben Chaveda Toida, my Lolo Kazakil, as if he gave birth to him. And it says, Eila Toila's animation. So the Medak Ben Chaveda, if Ben Chaveda, then the kid has two fathers. His father who taught him, and plus the teacher. If it's a Ben Amara, then as if you solo gave birth to him. Shlomo Kugel wants to say from me that maybe even you Yetzer Puravu. Maybe it's a puravu by becoming a teacher and teaching young kids. Then it's ki'ilu yolda. See what it says. Yet the pasuk says Shema b'nei Adam as well. So they both get credit. This was Hashem said the house of Yaakov, who released Abraham. What do you mean? When did Yaakov release Abraham? He released him from the known as Tsar Gidul Banim, the pain of raising children. And this is what it says. Yaakov don't be ashamed of. He won't be pale from his grandfather. In other words, because some say, because why would he be ashamed? Because they made Shachas Mincha, which is mandatory, and he made Maidid, which is only optional. And the Chassidus explains the other way around. Anything which is optional is even greater than a mitzvah because it couldn't be put down in the form of a mitzvah. Regardless, what do you mean he saved from Tsar Gidul Banim? And interesting, the Tsar Gidul Banim says Tosfos, it cannot be. Rashi says because he had to raise 12 children. Technically, really, Avraham Avinu should have raised all these children because it said Hashem said to him, "Basis that I'll give you many children." And then Yaakov took over; he raised the 12 children. Raising 12 kids is Tsar Gidul Banim. Tosfos says Chas v'Sholom. Interesting. Tosfos says, Chod, first of all, says I quote you about Tosfos. Ain't Tsar raising big families is not Tsar. Ella Simcha. What greater joy is it than having many kids? And Hashem bench, he brings from a Hashem bench someone with having a lot of children. Tosfos says Tsar Gidul Banim was that specific case because of what happened. They sold Yosef and everything that happened with that. Anyway, we continue back to Michal. She was married to a man called Palti ben Layish. In one place he's called Palti. Elsewhere he's called Palti El. Amar Rabbi Yechon Palti. His name is Palti. Hashem saved him from Aveda. Ma'asa, what did he do? He placed a sword between him and her. And Amar and Palti said, even though they live like husband and wife and they shared a bedroom, anybody can cross over and tries to have relations with each other because I recognize that you are the wife of David HaMelech. But Shaul says I have to marry you, so we will marry each other, but we will not live like husband and wife and have intimacy. It says it says that he went with her and he treated her like his wife. So Isha. He went with her like a wife, and then when they took her away from him, it says the pasuk he cried after Abachor into a place called Bachim. He loved her, it's his wife. Says the Gemara, Shenasala Isha. He treated her like a wife. They never had any intimacy. He cried. What did he cry for? He had no intimacy. Allah mitzvah doesn't. He no longer had the opportunity to do that mitzvah. Ad Bachim, Shenasa Shnei Bachim. They both lived like they were bachelors and a bachelorette. Shloi Talmud Tam Bia. Never had beer. Now, how did David HaMelech take him back? It's an interesting question the first one want to know. How did David HaMelech take Michal back? How did he know that she didn't live with somebody else? And the thing is that you cannot take your wife. He was engaged to Michal. To live with somebody else. How do you can take her back? That she committed adultery and everything. Says, so must be Ruach HaKodesh. And there's a whole then diyun. Can you basket halacha based on the views or based on Ruach HaKodesh? But here maybe it's only a subject. We don't know for a fact. Or maybe we believe Pawti ben Laish as an Eid Echad. He had nothing to gain by saying this story that they had nothing to do with each other. He had a cherev, even though he had a cherev. If she was merely engaged to David HaMelech, then the Isa would be skila, not cherev. If they actually got married, then the Isa would be chenek and not cherev. So interesting to see why he had a cherev there. But anyway, the Gemara continues. And the Gemara is going to now commend Palti Malai to say that the Mesiris Nefesh that he had, the restraint that the soberness that he had, far exceeds the greatest people that we had in history. The Gemara, the ultimate moment of Yosef when he triumphed against Potiphera is Avnisusa Shabbai. It doesn't compare to Boaz, when Boaz controlled himself with Ruth, when Ruth crawled on his bed. And Toikvashal Boaz. And the pinnacle of Boaz is Avnisusa doesn't compare to Palti ben Laish. What do we find by Boaz that was so great? It says that was the middle of the night. And I remember, because by Yosef, he wasn't in bed with her. She was a married woman. He was somewhere else, and an opportunity arose. So it wasn't that difficult to show self-restraint. On the other hand, by Boaz, so in the middle of the night, the trembled by Elofus, by Elofus, that he then became aroused, and nevertheless, he held himself back. Even though she was a single girl, and she was in the bed with him, he held her back to be married properly. Yosef held her back from a married woman, which is much easier to show self-restraint, because they were bed together and so on. So therefore, Boaz showed much more self-restraint. Tokvay showed Boaz, the old pinnacle of Boaz in Avnei Flusha showed Pai ben Laish. Doesn't compare to Palti ben Laish. We just said, why is it Palti ben greater? Because Palti ben Laish was treated like husband and wife. According to Shlomo Melech, Michal was not even the wife of David, and could be Palti ben Laish. But since David and Melech felt that Michal was his wife, he decided to control himself. That required far more exertion. Plus Rashi says that Boaz is only one night, because we know it says in the text that Boaz lived up to 100 years, lived one night with Ruth, and then passed away. And Mashiach gave Palti ben Laish for many years, lived with her, yet never. They're punished, it's unbelievable things. But the fact is, you supersede them. When you supersede them, what are we talking about? They both think extraordinary thing. That's self-restraint. Interesting that is we give the credit to Bonois Asachayil in the case of Mason. In the case of again. So I guess Bonois here is a generic term. You supersede them all. What you did for so many years, that you probably yourself believe that you're allowed to live with her, and she was never married to David, and yet you show self-restraint, is unbelievable. The charm is false. The hevel is just in the it's all great. Or the Yiras Hashem be Tisalo, true Hashem. That was Palti Ben Laish, what he did. So it must be that because he really believed that he was allowed to live with her, like Shalom Melech. But he followed David Melech's opinion and didn't want to in any way interfere. David Achad, Pshat, Sheker Achein, that's Doida Shal Moshe. The generation of Moshe. They all learned Torah. But it's not such a big deal because they had no distractions. In the Midbar, surrounded by a cloud, greatest teacher there, they didn't have too many distractions. They had little Hayefis that there's Yeshua, continuation of that. Or the Yidas Hashem Mikdasal, true Yidas Hashem that you want to praise. As Rashi says, at the time of Chizkiyahu HaMelech, every single person learned Torah from Dan to Be'esheva. You couldn't find one Amoritz in the entire Eretz Not one Amoritz. Not only we lived in other places, they all knew the laws of Tum V'Tada. There was not one Amoritz in the entire Eretz. Credit to Chizkiyahu. Dovarach, another pshat. Sheker Hachein, that includes everyone. Doidu Shal Moshe, Yeshua, Hevel HaYoifis, that Doidu Shal Chizkiyahu, even Chizkiyahu's generation. Oh, good. But compared to Yiras Hashem, you want to know true Yiras Hashem? The Doidu Shal Rabbi Yehuda ben Abeloi. His generation. Amar Rabbi Yehuda they were so poor. Not only they all knew how to learn Torah, but they were so poor and destitute. 6 Talmidim shared one coat. That even though they all shared one garment, nevertheless, they sat and learned Torah. And that is something extraordinary, something very, very noble. Like Mordor says, but interesting. We give the credit to Rabbi Yehuda ben Eloi. We give the credit to the kids. They're the ones who were so poor, and they nevertheless studied Torah. In case of Chizkiyahu, he's the one who sent out people all over to make sure they all know how to learn. But here it should be the kids. So we learn out a very important thing from here. The reason why the kids were prepared to put up with their poverty and everything else and learn Torah is because they were inspired by the teacher. We had in Gemara Nedarim, I think that's the test. Around there, where the Gemara Nedarim says that they were so poor, Rabbi Yehuda ben Eloi and his wife, that the wife sewed a coat, and they would cheer it. When she went outside, he sat at home, and when he went outside, she sat at home. And therefore, when the Talmidim saw how poor he was, and yet he went out to give shir and everything else, they were inspired. So therefore, the credit goes to Yehuda ben Eloi. But the truth be told, which I don't know why, the credit should go to his wife. She's the one who sewed the coat, and she's the one who gave it for herself, and she gave it up to give it to her husband so that he can learn Torah. So the real credit should go to, if not both as a couple, at least definitely to his wife. Not sure why you give all the credit to Rabbi Yehuda ben Eloi. Have a good day. See you tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem.